Hello, good afternoon to everyone here in the venue, as well as to all endodontists all around the world watching us. It is my huge privilege to have such wonderful guests today afternoon, which are Professor Frédéric Bukiet, a scientific advisor of the French Society of Endodontology, and he also serves as a peer reviewer for several journals and is an associate editor of the European Endodontic Journal. Professor Elisabetta Cotti, which is director of the postgraduate program Master in Clinical Endodontics at the University of Cagliari, lecturer in the Department of Endodontics at Loma Linda University, and she's also the president of IFIA, International Federation of Endodontic Associations, and as well Professor Josette Camilleri, who is the Dean of Dentistry at the University of Birmingham, and she has published over 150 papers in peer-reviewed international journals, and her work is cited over 13,000 times, which is a huge amount. Congratulations. Our today topic is very hot. We will be talking about bioceramic sealers, and the title is Bioceramic Sealers, Game Changer or Another Resilon. And just to open and warm up, I would like to ask the first question to Frédéric. Are bioceramic sealers the revolution in endodontics or not, in your opinion?
First off, many thanks for inviting me. To answer your question, I don't think they are a revolution or a paradigm shift, as we tend to say. If your question is it mandatory to switch from conventional sealers to bioceramic sealers, I don't think so. In my opinion, they are not a clinical necessity, but rather another possibility that we have and which seems reliable based on the available knowledge.
Sure. And Elisabetta, how about you? Do you immediately agree, or do you think this is hype we should be cautious about? Do you think this is a hype about bioceramic sealers, and we should be cautious about this topic?
Well, of course, we should be cautious. We come from a long way because we've been testing different hydraulic sealers, which was the beginning. So we have a sound starting base. But, of course, then we progress cautiously because we're switching the use and changing slightly the materials.
Sure. And Josette, what's your opinion? Based on the current evidence, are we ready to shift to sealer-based obturation or not right now?
Well, that's a very pertinent question at this stage because you mentioned a game changer. So the success rates have always been very good. Not everything works in everybody's hands. Okay? Endodontists have the privilege of being very skilled clinicians. They're very skilled, very highly trained, but is there a possibility to make it easier? But then after I have been looking at these hydraulic cements, all the bioceramics, all the techniques, to be able to move away from gattaperca, which we've used for hundreds of years, to a sealer, and I see how little we know about the sealer, do I trust the sealer enough? When, as I already discussed this morning in my lecture, the sealers are complying to the wrong norms and the wrong standards. It is wrong because we don't have anything else. It's not because we want to do it wrong. So there's nothing else. The problem is if there are no norms, there are no standards, there is no methodology, we cannot go headlong into it. We need caution. And caution is important.
That's true. That's true. And Elisabetta, what is the first red flag in your mind when you hear bioceramic game changer?
The first red flag is it's actually becoming from this experience that we're gaining to this point, which is the remedy for any possible problem or anticipating any problem. Is the choice mode that I think is going to flash a red flag. Like, we don't choose them to solve problems or to facilitate life, but because of a specific philosophy that we will create around the change in products.
Sure. Fine. So with this a little warm-up, we can go to details and discuss a little bit about evidence-based dentistry and odontology. And let's talk about sealing ability and microbiological leakage. Josette, we still lack of solid long-term comparative outcome observation, well-conducted clinical trials. How confident clinicians should be with bioceramics for clinical adoption?
I would be very cautious. I know a lot of people see my name stuck to these materials and they think it's okay because most of people assume that if there's a key opinion leader it is okay to use. I've always exercised caution. I have conversations with my colleagues, they ask me, everybody asks me. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm not saying they're excellent. I think we're doing everything the wrong way around. We have these materials available on the market. Are they adequately tested?
Like during your lecture.
Not. So, how do you want me to go headlong? Is there a red flag? Of course, there's a red flag. Because if they fail, they're going to fail on millions of people because millions are using them. So, I would suggest caution. And the antimicrobial activity, it's good to have, but the root canal treatment is not only the obturation. I cannot state it more than enough. Irrigation. Irrigation, adequate access, you have to be able to reach that canal, clean it. It's a full procedure, not one step in the procedure.
And Frederick, have you seen bioceramics advances translate into meaningful clinical outcomes in your own practice and your clinical experience?
It's a difficult question, but I think you are raising a very important point. I mean, the gap existing between in vitro ex vivo research and the reality of our clinical practice. And sometimes a direct translation is not suitable or can be difficult to establish. The main advantage I see regarding bioceramic sealers is our ability to use them with the concept of hydraulic condensation, including the single cone technique, which means that there is no need for intracanal gutta-percha compaction thanks to their good dimensional stability. And finally, it makes the obturation faster and also easier to a certain extent. It does not mean less demanding.
Of course. Good. And Elisabetta, where do you see gaps in the evidence despite promising short-term leakage studies? Where could be this gap?
I don't see the gap. The problem, studies are coming out, studies are interesting. We have just done a clinical trial which is ongoing, and we ran a trial that is being published at 4-year recall, which is showing a good performance of one sealer, which is at least comparable to an average technique which has been used for the last 30 years and considered a gold standard. So the results that I see are promising, but the thing is, we're not dealing with the same product. There are tons of products, and this is the tricky point, and the gap is this, in my opinion.
The composition can be different also.
Exactly. There are too many products and very little testing. How many people do you think have the facilities of Elisabetta where they can conduct proper clinical trials? Very few. In fact, we see very few. A lot of case reports. When you start doing work like the ESC has done with the S3 guidelines, you will realize how little we know and how little data there is, proper data.
Right, this was very, very informative. Now let's focus a little bit about retreatability. Elisabetta, many clinicians fear that bioceramic sealers are retreatment nightmares, right? How valid is this concern for long-term case management? We need to retreat a tooth that was...
I do fear this. This is why I'm pointing out that there are so many different products that you should know what you're using, and included the time of setting, which is very important for retreatability, and also the kind of hardness it develops at the end and how to take it out. So, and again, every product that I tested so far is different.
Maybe go straight to microsurgical solution. And Frederick, how do you respond to concerns about incomplete removal or slower, more complicated retreatment protocols?
The retreatability of bioceramic sealers is a controversial point. I think the main issue is related to their hardness upon setting, which might lead to root canal blockage. Of course, if it doesn't set, there is no problem. Also, there is no specific solvent, even if calcium chelating agent can help. But overall, I think it depends on the clinical scenario. So if you deal with a straight canal, if the master cone is well fitted to the full working length, you should be able to reestablish the apical patency. It was clearly demonstrated in a lot of studies. But on the opposite, if the canal is curved, if you deal with a short obturation with possible penetration of the sealer just beyond the master cone tip, this is another story. You can get stuck. So I think we should place strong emphasis on prevention. I mean, highlighting the critical importance of the master cone fitting regardless of the obturation strategy.
Because if we've got the gutta percha, it's like a path for the file. And Josette, do retreatability challenges vary significantly among different bioceramic brands or formulations? There is a claim that bioceramics often do not seal at all. Like we told, there are different products.
It is a very big issue. There are different products. The big problem with retreatability is you are, most of the times, hopefully, retreating somebody else's work. So you do not know what that somebody else had used. What is not mentioned is because everybody is really keen to remove everything, but we never really remove everything. For example, I had a case, thankfully I had a microscope, and it was an assumption. There was a zinc oxide eugenol in the canal, very likely it was a zinc oxide. I thought I removed everything, but obviously there are remnants, things you don't reach. I put in a plug, because it was a large canal, I put a plug over hydraulic cement. Normally this hydraulic cement sets, I was waiting, touch it, half an hour, more than half an hour, closed, bring the patient back, it hadn't set. What people do not know is interaction between one material and the other. Zinc interferes with the reaction of hydraulic cements. So while people are really worried about not being able to remove the cement, I worry more that what is left behind will interfere with the new obturation. We can put a bit our mind at rest because patients have an immune system, thankfully. So there's an immune system which hopefully can take care of the rest for you. What you don't achieve, the immune system will do.
That's right. And now we'll change a little bit the topic and focus on bioactivity versus marketing claims. And Josette, another question. What does bioactivity really mean in the context of endodontic sealers? The clinician can perceive wrong message that sealer itself can solve the problem with biofilm. What's your point of view?
Okay, so bioactivity is a term I do not use. I mean, it is a term that people invent. It is very easy to say, this is bioactive. It will work, I sell more, I make more money. So bioactivity happens only in vitro. In vitro, where you can control the solutions, you can control everything, that crystal formation is chemical activity. So bioactivity, now there's an FDI paper that explains bioactivity in the perspective of chemical, biological, a mixture of chemical and biological. Clinically, it never happens. You never get the phosphate. If phosphate was that readily available, people will not be able to walk, they will collapse.
And Frederick, have you observed any clinical benefits that you would attribute to bioactivity rather than just sealing?
I'm going to try to summarize. If we analyze the literature, this is clear that the biological properties of bioceramic sealers are better than those of conventional sealers. We have a lot of studies demonstrating this. But it does not mean that it improves the clinical outcome. And this is a difference which is of prime importance. And I think if we take a look at the clinical research which is available, and I suppose that Elisabetta will elaborate on this point, the conclusion is almost always the same. I mean, no significant difference if you compare with conventional sealers, conventional techniques. As you know, we have multiple parameters which are involved in the outcome of the root canal treatment. So it's complicated to answer, but so far, so good, not better, not worse.
And Elisabetta, are the bioactivity claims compelling enough to influence your sealer choice? Or not?
They don't. And just not to mention Josette again, but bioactivity is the minimum part, in my opinion, and I'm not that much in research. But why we choosing hydraulic sealer? Because they're compatible with humidity, and we work in a humid field. So that's why I started at the beginning saying this is not going to be a Resilon backup, because we are working on sounded based on choosing a hydraulic product. And this is, I think, is a twist in dentistry. Then we have to be very careful, because we have to know the product, select the product, and know the technique, as Frederick mentioned.
That's right. That's very good that you mentioned Resilon, because right now I would like to take you for a little journey to the past and talk a little about the Resilon experience. And Elisabetta, do you see a historical parallel between the current bioceramic enthusiasm and the Resilon failure, as you spoke just before?
Unfortunately, I should say I'm old enough to have been there. And that was a promise. But we started out in a total different way because we were going into a field that did not belong to endodontics. We were going into adhesion field. No endodontist in the world knew anything about that specifically. It was not our field. We went the wrong way. Now, this is a different issue. As I said, we started from ground evidence coming from the first hydraulic sealers, like, let's say, the Portlands. That was the beginning. And so we have good reason to hope for the best, and it's not going to be a second failure.
Sure, sure. And Frederick, is there any fundamental difference about the bioceramic sealers that should reassure clinicians that this is not another Resilon, or you still have any concern?
Controversial question, again.
It is.
I think the Resilon story is totally different. I think we cannot really compare. But when speaking of bioceramic sealers, the problem is that we are referring to more than 30 formulations which are available on the market, if I'm not mistaken. It's completely crazy. It's a full-scale marketing campaign. And this formulation can behave differently depending on the chemistry. It's all about chemistry, as mentioned by Josette. And we are not experts in this field. We are clinicians. So the question is how to make the right choice. This is a difficult.
All of them.
Yeah, this is a difficult question, and I think we still need to better understand what could be the clinical significance of different parameters such as solubility, water uptake capacity of hygroscopic materials, percentage of tricalcium and decalcium silicates, and also the connections between these different parameters. So overall, we need to better understand how they behave in order to use them properly.
So once again, we see that research is the basis for proper treatment and proper choice of materials. And Josette, from a scientific viewpoint, how can the profession avoid repeating past material hype cycles? Past and maybe future hypes?
Yes, I think we've learned a lot from the Resilon. So first and foremost, it has always been very clear that although adhesion is good coronally, what works coronally does not work in the root canal. We've been shown again, once again, we didn't learn from the glass ionomers. We go back on the adhesion. So as Elisabetta mentioned, we're not after antimicrobial activity. Second mistake is the radio opacity. Everybody wants to see it. Seeing it doesn't mean it is there. Another lesson learned. And also, the third one, which is the most significant, is the denial. Did it need 10 years? There were warning flags. Warning flags. There were the in vitro studies which were showing it is failing. But we continue insisting, oh no, it is not happening. It only happens in the lab. These lab people are crazy people. The clinicians know better. No, it was failing. The clinicians proved it 10 years later. 10 years of patients with the material in their mouths. So we need to learn from that.
That's right. Good. Thank you very much. And now let's think about the future, what the future will bring us. And Frederick, what role do you envision bioceramic sealers will play in routine endodontics in the nearest future?
I think we should be pragmatic. The practitioners seek simplicity. Right. And I think we are lucky to take advantage of this new obturation strategy, which once again makes the obturation faster and easier to a certain extent.
Good, thank you. And Elisabetta, what critical barriers or risks might prevent their full adoption, in your opinion?
As I said, first of all, we need to narrow down the products that we know better and we predict. And also, we need to develop and teach the right technique. This has been pointed out by them because we're seeking for an easy technique, an easier technique, but it's not easy technique without a learning point, learning curve, and that learning curve must be done. So we need to learn a technique, we need to teach a technique.
So to pick the proper material and to use it properly, right? And Josette, what type of evidence or clinical trial would definitely confirm whether bioceramic sealers are truly a game changer?
I don't think we're at the level of a clinical trial before we establish the relationship of the chemistry with the material properties. It needs to be step by step. I mean, the materials that we've been using, they have been there for many, many years. As much as I have been one to criticize the zinc oxides, this, that, and the other, the zinc oxides are a problem with the composite resins in the crown. People still use them, but use them properly. If it is used well, everything will work. We've seen very, very good success rates. I think it is very, very important, the knowledge, the continuing education, people attending such conferences where it is a critical approach, not I tell you, you do it. The
be
critical
up to date
approach,
to new
reading,
information,
we have
yes.
journals, we have everything. We need to do that. Not accept what is given to us like a parrot. I tell you what to do and you do it.
And to summarize everything, a question to all of you to have a small discussion to finish. What is your single most important piece of clinical advice for endodontists considering switching to bioceramic sealers today? What can convince them or stay them aware of new materials?
From my perspective, I think the most important thing is trial with a couple of teeth, choose materials from reputable companies, try a few, wait for the outcomes. It took me ages to go there. So I've been researching for 15 years, only using them clinically for 7. Trialed a few, it worked, I was happy. I got a couple of failures. I tried to understand why I got the failures, because you have to accept something will fail at some stage. It needs to be step by step, learning and a stepwise approach, not going full blast.
That's right.
I'm on the same page. My advice would be don't embrace too early a new formulation. I fell into that trap a few years ago, and I can tell you that it's not really pleasant because I've had to treat my own cases.
And Elisabetta?
I totally agree with what both said. So you need to pick up a product. You need to know that product in your hands and be very, very serious about the technique. And then most of it, you have to decide that you're going to go for that technique for every single case, not only for critical cases or whenever you're seeking something that will solve your problems. That's the key point.
So, thank you very much to all of you for a wonderful meeting and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Between your lectures and activities here. Thank you very much online and offline here on the venue, and see you later, right?
Thank you.